All right, I think we're live. This is episode 12 of Come Home America with Nick Hancock, podcast that narrates and navigates America's twin crises of identity and order. And this is my first time going live. I'm going to try out this because I've been too lazy to edit. I have Adobe Premiere Pro. I got to get something edited soon to help you guys enjoy the show a little bit more. How could you enjoy the show any more than you already do, though? But going live, testing it out, maybe this will just help streamline the process, especially when I don't have a guest on. And if you haven't seen, I just had a spectacular guest, Tho Bishop of the Mises Institute, on episode 11. So please check that out. And you will also find this podcast on iTunes, Spotify. All of the links are in the description below. One other thing I would like to ask you to check out, nickhancock.substack.com is where you can subscribe to my email newsletter. So you'll get updates in the email. And I've got a newsletter. It's like a compendium of unsanctioned opinion and analysis. You get some of that from me. Some of my thoughts on there aren't even necessarily so much news related, but just more of my cultural thoughts. You know, my last one that I put out is regarding the season of Advent. So interesting stuff you might enjoy. And it is going to include some material that we cover on the show, but a lot won't be covered on the show. And speaking of the show, I've been slow to upload, of course. I think I wanted to cover a lot of the election, but then that really wasn't why I started this podcast in the first place. And today we're talking about the election. Still, it is a top story, but there's so much up and down and back and forth on what's true, what's not. And so it's almost like, why don't I just wait until January 20th or whatever the date would be, where I could just look back and actually, show you what happened instead of, just trying to play whack-a-mole and guesswork every day of the week. So I think going forward, I'm going to aim to do this show at least once a week. And maybe one day going live, another day with a prepared interview, but at least once a week. And the Substack newsletter will also go out once a week. So my goal is to do the show on Fridays, at least a show on Fridays. I want to try to do more. And the newsletter goes out Monday mornings. So a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end of the week. That's the idea. So we'll see how that goes. But please sign up and you can check out the newsletter at nickhancock.substack.com. You don't have to just subscribe. And of course, it's totally free. All right. So the topics we're going to hit today. We are going to hit the wild video out of Georgia. And this is, supposed to be the smoking gun proof. And wouldn't I like to come on here and tell you that finally something happened? We've been waiting for something to happen, and here it is. And I don't know, honestly. It would be nice to say, we know affirmatively, yes, there was fraud that cost Trump the election, or just enough to say that there's affirmatively, this mass fraud. And I think it's safe to say there was mass widespread fraud. I don't think that's unsubstantiated. Hopefully this video stays live on YouTube. I'm not immediately taken down for saying that. But I'm also open-minded, at least, even though all my suspicions tell me that Trump won. I'm open-minded to what other explanations there could be. And at the end of the day, the difficult part is, for something like an election fraud to take place, especially under the horrible conditions that our election was placed under this year, arbitrarily, by the way, it's almost impossible to find the proof of what's alleged. And so, I'm not here to say that I have proof, but I am also here to say that I speak with millions, tens of millions of Americans who do really doubt the legitimacy of this election, even compared to previous elections that there's the systemic problem with them as well. So we will get into all of that. Trump's speech from a couple days ago, referencing a lot of these issues with the election. Also, the supposed President-elect Biden. He is ordering us all to wear masks for 100 days, and Kyle Rittenhouse update, and also the Biden dog story about Biden. Whatever it was, some injury to his foot or something. So very odd. And I don't know if you've seen Biden explaining himself to Jake Tapper of CNN, but I just saw that and I thought I should throw that in too. So 5 minutes in, let's get started, right? Now, this wild video out of Georgia, I'm going to check my notes here, but we have poll watchers getting kicked out, and then some like 4 workers staying behind, and then 30 minutes later the workers go into another room and pull ballots out of suitcases and start counting these secret ballots while no one's watching except for the security cameras watching them from 4 different angles. Now, is that really what happened? We are waiting to get more context. Tucker Carlson reported on this, said he's waiting for more context. I know the video's been up everywhere now, so if you haven't seen it, you are behind. But this video was obtained by Rudy Giuliani's team through a FOIA open records request. Maybe not like the federal FOIA, probably a state FOIA. But so what's going on here? It is suspicious. It's alleged that both media and poll watchers or vote observers, whatever you want to call them, this in Georgia, they were ordered out, or at least they were told that counting had stopped, and so the room was cleared. And the room was cleared allegedly by a woman with blonde braids, who is also seen in the video, also seen in surveillance video, placing a table in the room, and underneath this table being these suitcases, as they've been described. There's a whole lot going on here, but I think some of the questions that we still have is, you call these suitcases, is that supposed to be a suspicious word? The claim that I'm seeing is Francis Watson, the chief investigator of the Secretary of State in Georgia. Francis Watson is the chief investigator for the SOS office, and he's saying that these are actually official containers and that nothing is out of the ordinary in the video, which sort of begs the question, what is ordinary in these elections and in this video? Because we are talking about 10,000 ballots, and what's claimed on the side that I've seen so far from the Georgia Secretary of State's office is that these 10,000 ballots were removed, cut out of their envelopes in front of poll watchers, in front of media. And a lot of the workers that were there cutting these envelopes and processing these ballots to prepare them to be counted, those were all observed. And so once those workers left, the media and poll watchers left with them. And I don't know if I really believe that. It's like, why would a poll watcher leave and leave and this not be like the end of the counting? Why would they leave before counting was official? Maybe they, who knows what they were told is basically the point. So a lot more needs to be investigated into this. Okay, we don't know exactly what happened. The video, because it's narrated by people who are looking for fraud, it does come across extremely suspicious. And look, there's so many problems. There's so many reasons to be suspicious. The problem is that there's no transparency, there's no traceability, and there's no accountability for the election this year. And I thought President Trump made some really important points. And, he spoke for 45 minutes. People who hate the president, people who obsess over hating the president, said that he rambled on and, just was a sad man having a temper tantrum. And it's like, we've been hearing that same that same go-to, the temper tantrum, sad man stuff, the walls closing in for 4 years. So if you didn't watch the president's speech, the 45-minute speech, at least go check out a summary of or the transcript of it, because um, I thought he said some important things. So let's look at some of those. You have a whole array of examples that the president gave of ballots, mass mail-in ballots being sent out to folks who didn't even request them, and based on voter rolls that include lots of dead folks, lots of folks who don't live at those residencies, that addresses, or maybe even in the state anymore. And there's just all this lack of accountability. We have no sure postmarks or things coming in after the election and backdated according to whistleblowers coming out our ears with these affidavits, sworn affidavits, which we all know means you go to jail if you lie. And so, I could run through all of these, but one example is like in Wisconsin, you had voters, 250,000 voters under the category of indefinitely confined, when in previous elections it was only 70,000. So from 70,000 to 250,000. And what, because of COVID? I mean, really? And these indefinite confinements meant that there was less required of you regarding signature, regarding voter ID, regarding any sort of enforceability on the legitimacy and accuracy of the vote. So that's just one example in one state. But, the president looked at Wisconsin, he looked at Michigan, and showed large spikes at early hours in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, of Trump having a lead, a steady lead, and Biden's lead just surmounting it because a huge cache of votes was found and tabulated at that time. And it gave Biden a slight lead, whereas before it was a much bigger loss. And so we all remember that. We've all been through it. But I thought the president actually laid out a pretty good case. Maybe not totally solid on each and every fact. I think there's a lot there that needs to be reviewed and taken a look at. I'm not going to overstate his case, but here are the fundamental points that actually matter. And the president made this clear. Let me read from his speech. He said, "It is important for Americans to understand that these destructive changes to our election laws were not a necessary response to the pandemic. The pandemic simply gave the Democrats an excuse to do what they have been trying to do for many, many years. In fact, the very first bill that House Democrats introduced when Nancy Pelosi became Speaker was attempting to mandate universal mail-in voting and eliminate measures such as voter ID, which is so necessary," the president said. And that's exactly the way we need to be looking at this. I mean, we know that the Patriot Act was written long before 9/11, and they waited for the moment to pass what they already had in mind. And that's exactly, I mean, you don't think that the powers that be, that they don't want to hold power and grow their power and expand their power and entrench themselves in their power and keep new entries out of the game. I mean, this is the name of the game. And so that's exactly what happened here. COVID-19 was used as an excuse to push what they already had as an agenda item. And it's something more insidious than just growing government power under the Patriot Act. This is about altering the system, altering it's a revolution within the form, as Garrett would say. So let's see what else the president said actually earlier in the speech. All he said was, we have to go to paper ballots. And maybe it takes longer, but the only secure system is paper, the president said. So, I mean, who can argue with that? Paper ballots, some form of voter ID, I think signatures on the ballots. And once you have those, then you can start to debate absentee, mail-in, early voting, making sure it's accessible to everyone. I mean, they make it sound like it's hard to vote. I don't know. I mean, I can't relate. It's very easy to vote. So that was the president's speech, and my thought from it was, first, I mean, I just felt for the president. I mean, right or wrong, this is what he truly believes, folks. I mean, you wanna think he's putting on an act to fundraise or boost his supporters. I mean, there's some of that. He's a businessman, but I think also we know Trump's vanity. We know it. And and so he truly believes that he won the election. And so you can, in a sense, sympathize with that, even if you're not a Trump supporter. I mean, you should be able to. Everyone who goes into politics is a huge ego. I mean, a huge, a vain person. We know this. But so aside from just feeling bad for Trump, I mean, I just think that whatever happens, and right now it's looking like, I used to say Trump maybe had a 20% chance of challenging this election, and some people are feeling extra confident after this Georgia video, but I would say the president's chances are 10% or less, single digit chances. And I think what matters going forward, no matter what happens, really, the goal has to be the complete and utter demolition of the power elite's grip on our self-government birthright. You know, our our country, America, what we're born into. It's not just an idea. It's actually the place that makes us who we are, in the sense that if we were born anywhere else, we would not have what we would not have this, not just an identity as Americans, but we would not be standing atop the shoulders of giants. We just would not be the same people in the same society. I mean, it's just not. It's just not. It doesn't. That's not how it works. And so, this birthright to self-government, I think, is what characterizes America and should characterize Americans. And we see it not just in our voting systems, which need to be just overhauled, but we also see it in the mediating institutions. And you see the power elite's influence in the churches, in the schools, in the community organizations. I mean, any sort of institution that people would be a part of. I think the one, it's been pointed out that the one conservative institution left is supposedly police unions. And I'm not buying that. I mean, there's some something there when they're speaking out against, and speaking in support of Trump, and Trump has no institutional backing otherwise. But that's really not a good starting point for those who are not just right wing, but just non-leftist and the normal people in the country, and the real Americans, the normal Americans who aren't just possessed by Trump derangement syndrome, or are ideologically possessed. And that goes for many libertarians that I know as well, who just their entire worldview and entire self-worth, they're built into some form of libertarianism, as it goes for feminism, as it goes for so many other ideologies. And so what I started this podcast for was for really this moment that I think a lot of people are waking up to, and that is that we have lost our country, we have lost our birthright to self-government and our mediating institutions that really help us create relationships that are not dependent on the government, right? So that's what I think is so important. And how do we get those institutions back? That is for another episode, but every episode I try and give a piece of that puzzle. And that should be constructed in another 20 years or so, maybe, right? We'll see. But yeah, so we have to get back to as the Nisbet book on my shelf says, a quest for community. And really not living this way anymore. Every 4 years, the soft civil war over the presidency. Jeff Dice calls it a national psychosis, and we have to get away from that. I mean, if it's going to be Biden in the White House, I don't have a problem saying, not my president in a sense. I mean, it's like my president in quotes or something. But it's, I think there's more an inclination on the right, or at least the non-left, to accept the result, even if there's illegitimacy attached to the result. It's not. I don't think it's going to cause some hysteria over the way the political organizing happens on the right as opposed to the left. So I'm rambling. Let's move on to Kyle Rittenhouse. Get off of this. We will come back to Biden in a second. I just thought it was interesting to point out Kyle Rittenhouse, the shooter out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, who defended himself, who, yes, shot 3 people, I think killed 2 of them. But we remember from earlier episodes, I covered this story. The update is that he will face trial for all 6 charges. His lawyer tried to dismiss 2 of the 6, one of them being an exception to the rule of 17-year-olds carrying rifles. And that was not dismissed. And then the other one was public endangerment, which was really odd to me, because the way they made the case for public endangerment was the live streaming reporter who actually caught video of Rittenhouse shooting Rosenbaum, the very first shooting. That live streamer, his video evidence is really helpful to Rittenhouse. But he did testify that when Rittenhouse fired a shot, it was in his general direction, and he thought he felt something hit his leg, like maybe a rock or something. And so he looked down to see if he was shot. And so from that, Kyle Rittenhouse is being charged with public endangerment for defending himself. And so think about that. You wouldn't be allowed to defend under the rule of law if someone in the vicinity of you defending yourself felt like they were startled or somehow affected by you defending yourself. So very interesting legal question. We'll have to see how that plays out. I do still have hope that Rittenhouse will be fully exonerated and maybe one day acknowledged more widely among the public as the, I won't say hero, but maybe hero that he actually is, for lack of a better term. Now, I don't like to present him as an absolute role model, because I don't think he should have necessarily been there. But to say the ridiculous claims online that he's a murderer, or terrorist, or something, it's going to come out in the trial. But you just see right now, I think as Rittenhouse was overcharged with a lot of these ridiculous charges. I mean, murder 1. Are you kidding me? The judge in the case might be allowing a lot to be entered into the trial early on. And there's obviously a lot of public pressure to not let Kyle just off the hook, right? Fully. And I say off the hook, you know what I'm saying. But that's my hope, is that the prosecutor in the case, which was a prosecutor, not, the police didn't see much wrong with what Rittenhouse did, but a political prosecutor overcharges Rittenhouse. And so maybe in that same vein, the judge is sort of leaning on the prosecutor, siding with the prosecution early on in the pretrial period here. But we will see where that goes. Okay, so we have this very strange news from President elect Joe Biden, so to speak. He's got a mask order for us for 100 days, and we all know that the mask mandates do not work. Okay, you can have a little marginal argument about the efficacy of masks, but in terms of mask mandates, they just don't work, and especially ones for 100 days. I mean, how can anyone say that they, believe the science, that science is real, and that Joe Biden is all on board with all that, while Joe Biden says 100 days of wearing a mask? I mean, is 100 a scientific number? That's curious, right? I mean, on a national scale mask mandate, that's a scientific, that's cutting with a scalpel and not a butcher knife. I don't think so. So, if you have any doubts about that, Tom Woods's speeches on COVID, the ones that are still allowed on YouTube, do talk about the mask mandates. And, there are plenty of charts around the world that you look at the number of cases, and that's what they claim, is that the mask will prevent the spread of cases. And yet, after mask mandates, you see spikes, or you see the downfall of the case numbers, and the mask mandate comes after the fact that it was already falling, and it just continues on the same trend. So the mask mandates certainly make no difference, but this is all about power. This is all about display. This is all about political theater, so that after 100 days, Biden can say, hey, we did it, and it's all better now, and I did it, and Trump couldn't do it, but I did it. So the hope is that after 100 days, there will be some return to normalcy, but don't give in those 100 days, folks. Don't wear the mask. You go into a private business, they want you to wear a mask. Be nice. They're nice people trying to earn a buck, and it's a struggling economy. But if they were a smart business person, they would resist a lot of these lockdowns and restrictions and mask mandates. But for those that are sort of enforcing this on you, those who put the government ahead of you, the customer's interests, I would recommend a very special mask. I don't have it on me right now, but there are very special crochet masks that allow a lot of air to come in and out. It's very comfortable to wear, and you can still wear it below your nose. And for the most part, they won't bother you. So that's my position. And we will get into more on another episode about how to evade these lockdowns and evade a lot of these ridiculous impositions. But one thing I want to end on Biden is his dog story. This is so laughable as I shake down my studio. Let's end on a light note, right? Biden talking to Jake Tapper on CNN last night. Biden says, "Oh, what happened was," Biden talking about his foot injury, this so-called foot injury. We saw the video of him wearing a boot, walking kind of like he always walks, but I guess that's what the boot's for, to help you walk, whatever. And what happened? How did Biden get this injury? Is he frail? What happened? No, the campaign came up with this story, and you can hear the story right now, and you tell me if you believe it. But Biden says to Jake Tapper, "Well, what happened?" And he gives this fake laugh. I can't even do it. But it's a much better fake laugh than Kamala Harris, okay? So give him credit. But he just laughs right at the beginning, like, "Oh, get ready for this doozy," right? And then he ends the story by saying, "Well, it's not that interesting of a story." So he actually plays it up like it's a joke, and then like it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. So very odd mixed signals from Biden on his story. But this is the story. He says, "I got out of the shower." Okay. Great image, right? Great image. The next president is coming in, and we have to think of him coming out of the shower. Okay. He's getting out of the shower, he says. So what does that mean? He's naked and wet. Okay. So does that mean he's set up for an accident? Is that why he tripped and hurt his foot? Because he was naked and wet? Well, he says, "I've got a dog, as anyone who's been around the house can tell you." And then what does that mean? Anyone who's been around the house can tell you that you own a dog? Anyone who's been around the house can tell you that what? Well, he says he dropped a pup. Dropped a pup, Joe? No, he dropped a ball, and he dropped a ball, and I'm walking through this alleyway. Okay, Joe. Alleyways. Are you talking about a corridor? Are you talking about a hallway? Are you talking about a nook? Like, what are you talking about? An alleyway? Who has a house with an alleyway? I mean, maybe Biden was moving from like one part of his property to another building, is some grand mansion that he actually has an alleyway. Would he be naked and wet walking through this alleyway? It's very confusing. But Biden then says, I was joking that I was going to run after the dog on the way to the bedroom. Very creepy. Run after the dog's tail. And then, so I don't know what happened with the ball. Did he pick up the ball? I don't know where the ball is right now, but he's going after the dog's tail now. And the dog slipped on a throw rug. And Biden tripped on the dog, or Biden tripped on the rug that the dog slid on. Does that make sense? Biden said he tripped on the rug that the dog slid on. He didn't trip on the dog after the dog slipped on the rug. No, it's like the dog pulled the rug out from underneath Joe. Does that make sense to anyone? How big is this dog? I bet it's a little scrappy doo puppy. I bet it's a little pup, like you said. Anyway, I just had to end it on that. Okay, this is crazy. This Joe Biden presidency is not going to last. He's going to become the as the comedian McClellan. What's his first name? McClellan Comedy. Joe McClellan. I want to say Joe McClellan said Biden will be seen in history as the second Catholic president who was assassinated by his vice president. Right. So how much longer can this last? Can this Biden, a hoax last? He's in late dementia. He's breaking bones already. And this is the story we're supposed to believe. It's clearly not what happened. He didn't come out of the shower naked and wet, seeing his dog drop a ball, running after his tail, slipping on a rug that the dog slipped on. It makes no sense. I just don't see it. I don't see it. You dry yourself off, Joe. Get dressed and then take the dog outside and have one of your handlers play with the dog. I don't know. Anyway, that's the first live stream of Come Home America. I have another studio system set up here that I can live stream with live video and other graphics behind me and stuff. But I will give you more of those goodies later. Please go to nickhancock.substack.com and subscribe to my newsletter and check out the Tho Bishop episode. I got more cool interviews coming up. So if you have ideas for guests, you can let me know. I do appreciate all the new subscribers and those who are sharing. So thank you to Brad Asoba for sharing on Facebook and liking and all that good stuff. I really look forward to hearing your guys' feedback as I grow the show. You're going to see coming up, we're going to drift away from these political fun stories and into some more interesting ones, closer maybe to what I was talking with Dissident Mama about in another episode that you can also find here. So with that, God bless you. Blessed Advent, and we'll see you in the next one. Cutting out here. Thanks again. Thanks again. Now it's ending.